fight. All the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does the stars sprinkle then iron way? Oh, the land of the free and the home of the brave.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
All right, hello everybody, and I hope everyone is well. This is Michael Voss, the Dragon of the Southern Tier. I am out here with you, and I hope everyone is going to have a very good Friday weekend. So, as you can see from the start of the program here today, and it won't be long, but I do want to say a couple things here. Obviously, I'm talking about what's going on in China, the China protest, and I'm talking about America, and I want to talk about the U.S. athletes. I want to talk about why America is a beautiful, great nation. And I'm not saying it because I believe, and I do, that America is a beautiful, great, wondrous, free nation. And that's an important thing to say. But I don't want to say that from the point of view of an American. I want to say this from the point of view of the other people who are saying it. The Chinese nationals, the illegal aliens that come into our nation, tens of millions of illegal aliens. And by the way, that's not racist, because there is no race in illegal alien. It's people who are not from America. So anyone who wants to jump off the boat immediately and say, well, you're talking about racism, stop. There is no racism. What's the country of illegal alien? There isn't one. That's any nation that isn't the United States. That's people who are white, brown, black, whatever it is. And see, we need to have this honest discussion so we can understand America is beautiful. America is wondrous. America is a great nation. I love it. So do tens of millions of illegal aliens. So do the Chinese nationals. And we need to think about that. And that's something that we don't hear enough, because that's not what is being said by U.S. athletes in the Olympics or the Pan Am Games or in the U.S. women's soccer. When they're internationally competing and America excels because of the wonders and grace and freedom of America, and then all of a sudden they turn around and go, well, let's disrespect America. Let's trash America. Let's try and promote America being horrible to the world. The world that actually looks at America as a beacon of hope and wondrous gains and freedom. And I think that really needs to be discussed. I think that really needs to be talked about. Now I'm going to take a moment here. I do want to let people know I will be speaking with Larry Sharpe, the libertarian who ran for governor of New York in 2018, a little bit later today. He's delayed, and so we're going to be speaking at 4 o'clock. But I think this is an issue that needs to be talked about right now. And let's actually have a conversation about it, because you don't really hear the conversation. We hear the media spin on it. We hear political spin on it, but we don't actually have a conversation that says, gee, is this really what America's about? So I'm going to start off with something very simple. I've been talking about this for a while now. And I know in China, the protests have been going on for about 11 weeks. And you haven't heard about the news for 11 weeks. And I know that back in July, there was a conversation about Colin Kaepernick and the Nike sneakers and what is America. And some people were saying, well, just showing an American flag is racist, which I reject. And that was Colin Kaepernick and Nike. And I want to go back to that a little bit. I want to talk about, and I'm going to let you hear this because I want to bring you to where I understand why illegal aliens, why the Chinese nationals are demanding freedom. They're coming to America. They're relying on America. They're using America as the example of freedom that we have. They wish, that they pray, that they are fighting and dying to have, trekking thousands of miles to try and get a glimpse of. Let's really have that conversation. So let me jump back, and I want to go to a conversation I was having on Colin Kaepernick, Betsy Ross, the Sneakers, and Jesse Owens. So let's put this in perspective a little bit, and I'm going to start right there in the middle of that, and links will be to the, if you want to see the video, links are included. In 2019, here's a reminder. That was August 9th, 1936. And in August 9th of 1936, there was the Olympics. And Jesse Owens won his 4th gold medal. Jesse Owens loved America. Jesse Owens represented all of America. And this was a time where it was before the Civil Rights Movement. It was after, of course, the Civil War and the 14th, 13th, 15th Amendments, where we saw that slaves were freed. So, yeah, it was not a good time to be a person of color in America. And Jesse Owens loved America. Frederick Douglass, going back to 1852, loved America, stood up for America, fought for America. You know what? When I think of Nike and I think of Colin Kaepernick, I then go back and I think of Jesse Owens. You know what? Colin Kaepernick has never faced the oppression that Jesse Owens faced. He never had to go through the adversity that Jesse Owens went through. In 1936, Colin Kaepernick and anyone alive today in 2019, we're talking about the millennials, they have no concept. I, born in 1968, have no concept of the kind of oppression and racism that Jesse Owens had to go through, that Frederick Douglass in 1852 had to go through. And to say that today there is so much oppression, so much horror. Let's think about this for a second. And I'm going to stop right there. And that's just a short little piece of what I was talking about back on July 7th. And I believe it. And I think it's absolutely true. Back in 1936, back in 1852, there was oppression in America, no doubt. And America was a difficult nation for many people. Women didn't have the right to vote, depending on what time frame we're talking about. We're talking about people of color having issues, having to deal with Jim Crow, segregation, separate but not equal. And you know what? If you heard Colin Kaepernick, if you heard Rapinoe, if you heard Race Emboden or Gwen Berry were speaking of drop suddenly. But if we were to say, and I hate that the internet's dropping here, but if we were to say in those times that America was a difficult place and that it was unfair, I'd agree with you. Even in the 1950s, early 1960s. Yeah, it's true. But we're in 2019. And in 2019, we have Colin Kaepernick, who's denouncing America for the millions that he gets to make, to have a lifestyle that 99% of America will never be able to live, to have a freedom to go and do things that average Americans can't do, which means the world can't do. Colin Kaepernick is in the top, 0.1% of the world? But yet America is a horrible place because it gave him the opportunity to be able to be in that top 1%. Well, let's move forward in time a little bit. So let's see what some other athletes of America, how did they react? How did they treat America? Well, this is from my article when I was talking about the U.S. Women's World Cup Championship, a championship that only exists because America created the Women's World Cup so that we could have an opportunity to excel because we can't do it in the men's team. And here we go. The flag is being dragged on the ground. That is a fact. We're seeing the flag being dragged on the ground, which is a disrespect, and that is intentional. She is obviously not trying to hold it off of the ground. So that's a fact. Let's go a little further in the video. We now see that stop. She moved it from hand to hand, which means she was very aware that she had the flag in her hands and that the flag was dragging on the ground. That is a intentional action. She knows what she is doing. She then drops the flag. She knows she had it in her hand. She switched hands with it. She knows what she's doing. She drops it. It is now on the ground. She has intentionally done this. Okay, and let's stop right there. So, and again, what are we seeing? Athletes, individuals who have been given the chance, partially because of the nation, partially because of their skills, to be able to excel to an extent that 0.1% of the world will ever be able to enjoy. Opportunities that no one gets to have. And they're getting this opportunity here in the United States. And yet they want to disrespect it. They want to tell you that it's not a great place. Rapinoe and some of the members of the U.S. women's team disrespect America. Don't want to say the Pledge of Allegiance. They want to drop the flag on the ground and drag it because they don't care. It's not about America. America's not worthy of being honored in some of their minds. In Colin Kaepernick's mind, America needs to be denounced. It has to be somehow lesser than what it is. And I have to wonder when I hear these things, when I see these things, that there are kids out there who are seeing this, who are seeing these protests and saying to themselves, gee, I should be more like them. That's how to be successful. That's how to get fame. Because there is no difference between infamy and fame anymore. Thank you, social media. And they think that, well, this is what I need to do. This is what I need to become. I need to become a rapper. I need to become a criminal. I need to become someone who disrespects America. Because that's the only way to success. And I have to tell you, that's not what the rest of the world is seeing. That isn't the way the rest of the world thinks. And we should be thinking about it from the point of view of the rest of the world. And our kids should be enabled to be able to respect and enjoy and love the nation that we have. That's why 10 million, maybe 20 million, somewhere between 10 to 20 million illegal aliens are in the United States now. That's why we have at our borders thousands of people at a time trying to enter our nation illegally and violate our laws. Because even if they break the law, the opportunity to get into the nation is worth the penalty that they will pay, because it is such a great and wondrous nation. And the opportunity to excel, not at the level of Colin Kaepernick, not at the level of Rapinoe, but just at the level of an average American, is so superior to their home countries like Venezuela, like Colombia, like, well, you can go anywhere in the world, Nigeria, Tanzania, China, North Korea, Cuba. It's so bad in those other nations that they want to be here, that they're willing to be here as criminals and to go through punishment because it's still better than where they were. But that's not the message you're hearing. No, that's not the message you're hearing. And you got to think about it. What is it that's so terrifying? What's so bad about these other countries that we're being told that we should be more like? We need to be more like these other countries. We should give up our guns, like in Venezuela. And the Venezuelan government then turned around and killed 5,000 of its own people over 2 years, in the last 2 years. We should be more like the communists. We should become more socialist, like China. China, the same nation where protesters, as I showed at the very beginning, are singing the praises of America. This is the same nation that the Chinese government, as of August 12, according to CBS News, where in the article that says, U.S. urges China to respect Hong Kong's freedoms after airport violence, as photos show Chinese troop buildup. And when they say Chinese troop buildup, here is the image from CBS News. These are satellite images. Those are troop carriers. Those are over 100 vehicles, armored personnel carriers, and other vehicles that are lined up just outside of Hong Kong. And you have to ask yourself, well, Mike, why are they outside of Hong Kong? What is the reason why they're going outside of Hong Kong? What's the Chinese government going to do? I mean, these are Chinese people that they're dealing with. They're doing this because, as according to Time Magazine in their article, What Happens Next in Hong Kong Protests, which is today, it came out. And in that article, they note very clearly what's going on. Why is this happening? Because Hong Kong is, this is the exact quote here, while Beijing would be responsible for the territory's defense, the defense of Hong Kong when they took it over from the British, and foreign policy, Hong Kong would be allowed to retain freedom of speech and freedom of assembly in addition to other liberties that are not afforded to the mainland Chinese population. Let's stop right there. And you can read the articles in full. They'll be in the description of the video on YouTube. But China wants to take away the freedom of speech, and they want to take away the freedom to assemble, to have meetings, protests, discussions. They want to take away people's freedom, and they're willing to do so by force. But we hear people like Colin Kaepernick saying a nation that exists to emphasize individual freedom is bad. We hear people like Rapinoe of the U.S. women's team, who's out there saying, well, she doesn't believe in the Pledge of Allegiance, of support of this nation, she believes in disrespecting the flag because she doesn't think America is worthwhile enough because she's not making enough money. Remember, this is what her big protest is. She doesn't make as much money as a better, bigger, more established sports team. She wants the money that the men's team makes. The men's team makes more money. They have more fame. They have more attention worldwide. But she wants the money because she's a woman. Not because she's as good. Not because she's as popular. Not because U.S. women's soccer is doing as well. No, she wants it because she's a woman. Colin Kaepernick wants more money. He wants more power because he's black. And then you should give it to him because he's black. Does that make any sense? Chinese nationals are facing 100 armored vehicles, an incursion by the Chinese government into their city because they want the ability to speak freely. And people who are speaking freely, like Colin Kaepernick, like Mary Rapinoe, are out there and they're saying, hey, you know what? Screw the free speech. We just want things because we feel like we should have it. And America's horrible because we can't get what we feel like we should have. I mean, do you see the imbalance here? And guess what? For 11 weeks, the Chinese have been having this argument, but you've been hearing about Chris Cuomo, you've been hearing about Colin Kaepernick, you've been hearing about Mary Rapinoe, you're hearing about Race and Bowden, you're hearing about Gwen Berry, but you're not hearing about people who are singing the American national anthem, who are waving American flags in their home country, saying they want freedom. You know, and that's why when I see this, I say Race and Bowden, Gwen Berry, you know, you're joining a line of athletes who are protesting America, and you're missing the fact that people are praising America around the world. I'll go back to my original thought when I was talking about Jesse Owens in 1936. I'll go back to my example of Frederick Douglass in 1852. They had oppression. They had the same kind of oppression that we're seeing in China, that we're seeing in Venezuela, that we're seeing in Cuba, that we're seeing in North Korea, that we're seeing in 2/3 of Africa, that we're seeing throughout South America. They have oppression. That is true oppression, where you don't have the freedom to speak. You don't have the freedom to vote. You have to fear the state coming out and killing you. Those are real fears. Those are realities. They exist right now in the world. Slavery exists right now in the world. Boko Haram is one of the leaders of Slavery in Africa, it exists. Women in the Middle East and other parts of the world do not have the right to vote. They don't have the right to drive by themselves. They can be stoned to death for being raped. This is a reality of the world, not America. And you're disrespecting America and saying that people who want to become more like America, more free, to be able to defend themselves, to be able to speak out and just have a comment without being killed, and you're saying that that's bad, that that's the wrong example, that America should get away from that? I don't understand this. I really, really don't understand this. And we really need to put this in context. Let me go to a very different kind of point of view. Tim Pool, who I sometimes agree with and sometimes I don't. But I want you to hear what he had to say.
Concern here is what's happening in Hong Kong with them singing the national anthem. It's a small group, waving the American flag, and some people saying a Second Amendment. They know what America represents. America has become a shining light for many countries around the world. And that's why it's a damn shame that, it makes me really sad that what we're seeing in America is people complaining about Chris Cuomo. Look, man, not a big fan of the guy, but he did apologize. If that's what we're concerned about, we still are a symbol to these other countries that while they're being beaten down by a communist sort of government, demanding freedom, demanding the autonomy, saying get rid of this extradition bill, there are people there waving our flag, singing our song because, believe it or not, America still is a pretty damn free place. And that's a great thing.
That's right. It's a great thing. People are running around. But the news media wants you to focus on Chris Cuomo. And they want you to focus on, Chris Cuomo, he said some words. He was angry. And yeah, you can criticize him. And it's good to criticize him. He deserves to be criticized on his flip-flops, his lack of consistency, internally or objectively. And we should. At the same time, where is that same criticism? Where is that same critique? Where is that same understanding that we have athletes running around America right now who are disrespecting America, teaching younger generations that that is the way you should go forward? That we have individuals like Chris Cuomo who is out there and saying that, Antifa is something that we should be doing. Matter of fact, I highlighted that in an article a year ago on August 18th of 2018, and you can go to the Voss Political Commentary site and you'll see this. It was simulcast number 12 when we were talking about Chris Cuomo and Andrew Cuomo against America and how they were talking about Antifa. And we're talking about, and in there, I was talking about the explicit call for support for the violence against beliefs that CNN's Chris Cuomo does not like, the support of Antifa and progressive leaders of tomorrow and their far left that were advocating for violence. At the same time, the Governor Cuomo was saying that he thinks that America is not great and that America was never great. You know what? When you think about that, I have to put those comments, those long-term, those repeated messages that are coming out there of CNN, so many other sources, from the Cuomos, from so many other sources, from Colin Kaepernick, from Mary Rapinoe, from Race and Bowden and Gwen Berry at the American Pan Am Games. I have to say, wait a minute, guys. If America's so terrible, why are there 10 to 20 million illegal aliens in America right now? Why are there thousands of people who are traveling thousands of miles through foreign countries that are risking being raped, starving to death, not having proper clothing, being separated from their families, selling off their kids, traveling through deserts just for the opportunity to be here and live in the shadows of American citizens because it's that much better? Why are there people in China who are risking the government, which is what they're thinking right now, who are going to put them in concentration camps, not luxury tents down in the southern border of America, not with the freedom to travel around. No, real concentration camps, like the ones in Moscow, like the gulags in Moscow, and the concentration camps in China, dissident camps, real oppression. Now, why are they risking that and singing the praises of America, flying American flags? And we're a horrible nation. We're a nation that we should be, they're looking for violent protest. Chris Cuomo, Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, otherwise known as PLOT, Antifa, they're out there saying that they're telling our kids on social media, on the news, that you should be protesting. And I have to, again, come back to, what are you protesting? You have freedom. You have the ability to speak without being shot. You have the ability to become a multi-millionaire, to become an athlete. And I mean, if we're going to talk about athletes, and we should, let's really talk about the athletes. You know, like the ones that I showed before. Embolden. He does fencing. Gwen Berry, she does a hammer throw for track and field. Okay, you have the freedom to not have to worry about feeding yourself, starving to death, being raped by the government, being killed by the government. You have that freedom, that wonderful expression of life to be able to go into your art and into your talents and your skills and become a fencer. Really? A fencer. To be able to throw a metal weight, a distance. And this is, and I acclaim, I love their ability to do that. But at the same time, I have to say, do you think the average person, even the talented people in places like Venezuela, like China, like North Korea, you know, 2/3 of Africa, Tanzania, Chad, Niger, that they're living that kind of life, that they have that kind of opportunity, that this is common, that tens of thousands of people can even try? No, they don't. They don't. So why are we letting these athletes go out there? And I want to go back to Mr. Bowden, because in the Pan Am Games, he notes in his comments that he's like, well, really, my pride, however, well, actually, I'll read it from what I said the first time. Okay, let me stop right there. Let's think about that. A fencer. What career path is a fencer? How many people get to live by fencing? Actually, I want to go back a little bit further. Hang on, I have a time mark here. And there it is. Let's play that. What did they have to say? What's the reason why someone who has just won acclaim and international attention and is being presented to children around the world, and their national anthem is playing, and they decide, well, I need to disrespect that national anthem? What reason would they have for that? Well, according to Race Embolden, by the way, he has a stupid name. Race? Really? Race Embolden, unless I'm mispronouncing it, but it's Race Embolden. What does he have to say for himself? He says that my pride has been cut short. His pride in America has been cut short by the multiple shortcomings of the country I hold so dear. Racism, gun control, mistreatment of immigrants, and a president who spreads hate are at the top of a long list. Okay, so let's think about that for a second. This is what we hear from our athletes. Oh, America is racist. You hear that from Colin Kaepernick. You hear that from Race Embolden, Gwen Berry. You hear that America is gun control. Oh my God, we have too many guns. You hear that from the politicians. The 2020 Democrats all are saying this. Kamala Harris, Kirsten Gillibrand, who's a senator. They're saying, oh, we have to take away the guns. We have to have more government control over the people. And we don't treat, AOC and so many others are saying, oh, well, we got to protect our southern border. Even as we have members of Congress go down and violate the laws, taking illegal aliens, bring them to the United States illegally. Yeah. And they're telling us that America is so terrible, so horrible, because, Colin Kaepernick is a multimillionaire. By the way, he's a person of color. Gwen Berry is able to go to the Olympics and have a life, and she has plans. She'll be successful if she wants to be. That's just so racist. How dare she? She has the ability to vote. Neither of them are in slavery. Places in the world have that right now. You're telling me about, oh, you want to have more gun control, like Venezuela? I mean, Venezuela, where the government took away the right for people to have guns and defend themselves so that they can then turn around and kill their own people. New York Times. Look the article up, folks. This is not new. That we have hundreds of armed vehicles sitting outside of Hong Kong. An obvious and direct threat to the people of Hong Kong that if you don't shut up, if you don't stop asking for freedom, we're going to roll in the troops to silence you. Like Tiananmen Square. I know many millennials and Gen X, you're too young to know about this. Look it up. I lived through that. I lived through the Moscow coup attempt back in 91. I saw the tanks roll down the street. I saw a government and people that were under a coup were hardliners who wanted to take away people's freedom, all of their freedoms, was willing to go to the extreme. I don't know. Maybe it's me. But when I look at tens of millions of illegal aliens, when I look at people in China and other parts of the world singing the praises of America, saying, like the Green Movement in Iran, where people are saying, America, we want a glimpse of the freedom that you have every day. And I compare that to Colin Kaepernick, Mary Rapinoe, to Racing Bowden, Gwen Berry, all these athletes who are living lives the average American can't even get. And they're saying, well, too bad, you don't deserve that. I have to say, something is wrong. And it's not the freedom that we have in America. It's not the democracy or honestly, the constitutional republic that we have in America. The problem is some people with agendas are using emotion and words like racism to silence people. Sexism, racism, all these isms. They're trying to use that to silence you and to cow you into submission. And you know what? I don't agree. But you can tell me, I've gone through a lot of things here. I'm going to end this here. But you can tell me if you think I'm wrong. Because maybe I am. Maybe you have an argument that tells me why this is not the correct answer. But I will leave it on this. A very important image, and we should see this more often. I'm going to leave it on China, the Chinese nationals who are praising America because for all the athletes that think it's not, go live in China and beg for the freedom to be able to do what they're doing right now. Thank you, folks.
And bright stars through the perilous fight. All the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there.